sometimes the ripple effect that comes from that decades later. You know, Steinbeck was accused of being a communist and had all kinds of issues because of some of the things that he wrote. But at the end of the day, and it's sad that it takes them so many of the times they have to die before they get held up on a pedestal. Not that they necessarily, not that any of us deserve to be on a pedestal, but it's a shame to think that people do things in life that seem ordinary at the time that then become very influential or prolific later on down the road. And I think it's a reminder to people, you know, everything you do matters. And, you know, can you imagine if John Steinbeck was still alive or the guy who originally owned this boat to realize, you know, the fact that you and I are sitting here having a conversation about it right now. I mean, little things happen to ultimately change the course of history, and all of us change the course of history in some capacity. And you're doing it. So applauding you for, I mean, clearly you're spending money and you're devoted, you know, you're devoting your time to creating something. And as you stated from the very beginning, you want to make sure that it doesn't die when you die, which is a testament to exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, you know, none of this stuff that we do most days will matter in 2 years, much less 10 years, much less 80 years. But, you know, once in a while, if you get the opportunity to do something that will have an impact on other people, it's, you know, I just feel lucky to do it. You know, it doesn't even seem like a decision or a choice. I mean, I just like, wow, this is such a nice opportunity I've been given for whatever reason. So I'm happy to be involved in it.
Well, so there's some other people involved. I'm looking at the board of directors, a woman named Susan with a PhD at the end of her name, and a gentleman named Richard with a PhD at the end of his name. It seems as if you've got, and then Chris, the guy who's the shipwright, you've got some pretty A-list people as a part of your organization here. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yeah, I've had no trouble getting people, like, as soon as I ask people, they're like very enthusiastic to volunteer their time. And so I don't know a lot of these spaces. I forced got my way through most things. So being able to surround myself with people that know education and know art better than I do and know all these things, you know, it's been really, been very fortunate.
Well, any odd or funny or interesting stories that stand out throughout this process for you that we haven't already touched on?
It's almost a daily thing where something will happen, you know, and it's usually, you know, somebody will walk up and tell me some story about it, which is you know, there's the boat has, when you stand next to the boat. And I know a lot of people say this, and I'm a scientist, so I'm not prone to, you know, googly eye things, but you can feel the boat has this life force, and you can feel that with all these shipwrights crawling all over her and working on her, she's palpably happy. And
that's cool.
She had a knack for survival. Like most of the boats that came from that boatyard, and they were all used as minesweepers in World War II. So they requisitioned like hundreds of them. And the only reason they didn't take that one is because she was still registered in Tacoma, and they had taken enough boats from Tacoma. They wanted to leave some. So it didn't get crunched up then after the war like a lot of boats did. And then, you know, it sank 3.5 times. So it always, in fact, one of the captains, a
strong will to survive within her hull.
Yeah. Like she had a bad captain one time. This guy everybody hated, and he sank like the previous 3 boats that he'd been on. He was like drunk and kind of a bad guy, and he had one arm was torn off, and so he had a hook, and he would, you know, he was prone to use the hook in bar fights and things, and he no one
like
liked
a movie.
The guy. And he was a bad guy, and so he was yelling at the crew one time, and he wanted to show them how to put a crab trap in the water. So he goes out there up in Alaska on the flyer, and these traps are like 300 pounds, you know, and he is kind of angling it over the deck, and it slides off the rail, and his hook got caught in it, and it took him down down to the bottom. And so there's like one of the crewmen was saying now there's discrepancies on how fast they turned the boat around to go get him hauled back up. But they hauled him up, and right when he broke the surface, he was still hooked to the trap. He was dead, of course. And, the hook, as soon as his body hit the air, the hook came out, and now that hook's in some bar in Ketchikan.
Oh my gosh. So, wow.
And the rumor was the boat has a knack for preservation. If it gets a bad captain, it'll get rid of the captain. So that was the story.
Well, you're still around, so I guess maybe you're not the captain.
So I'm careful not to endanger the boat in any way. I'm very respectful towards it. If someone says, "Do we want to use galvanized bolts or stainless?" I say stainless.
Yeah,
whatever she wants.
Yeah, nothing but the best. Nothing but the best.
Yeah.
So you're you are local here in Southern California, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And then the boat is up in Monterey. Is that are you making regular trips up to go visit it?
Actually, it's in Port Townsend, Washington.
Oh, that's right.
Wooden boat building school up there, and I just happened to get lucky and have it at this place where kind of the last wooden boat builders are in the U.S. So they're just really lucky. I've got like the 6th best shipwrights in the world, I think. Working on it every day. So it's fortunate it's there.
And what an opportunity for them to be, to have that be what their passion and profession is, and to be able to get to work on a project like this has got to be a once in a lifetime type of thing for sure.
And that's what they all say. I actually have trouble with them because they're doing such a good job. Like, it's like, come on guys, we're not building a piano here, let's get those boards on. But they're so enthusiastic about the project, and they care so much about what they're doing, and they know this is going to be, kind of a legacy thing for them. So they're really, really careful on what they do and what they put out. It's beautiful.
So from a fishing vessel to an excursion vessel to a floating classroom is kind of the timeline that I see with the boat. And the stories that will continue to come from it, and who knows how many young kids will be inspired to go on and do things, whether it's in the science world or maybe they'll just end up being authors, and I don't say just in a bad way. All of it is one, and one of it is all, as Steinbeck said. What do your kids have to say about it?
They're pretty, they're my kids, so they're pretty quiet about being enthusiastic about anything I'm involved in. But I think quietly they're very, very happy about being involved in it too. So. And
does your wife think you're crazy?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's good. If she didn't, then there'd be something wrong, right?
Yeah, it comes up a lot because anything I say about spending money on something, it comes right back. You're spending $3 million on an old boat. Don't talk to me about a new sofa.
Right. Well, John, listen, I really appreciate your willingness to step up and share a little bit about this story, and I'm super intrigued with it, and we'll definitely have it on my radar to follow and see the progress. A quick little story that's not 100% related to this, but it does. It's related in that I followed these two guys for close to 7 or 8 years, I think, and this goes back. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was. I think it was the late 90s or very early 2000s, maybe. I think it was 99, 2000. Nonetheless, it was right at the beginning of digital camera age, really the beginning of prolific use of the internet and so on. Mm-hmm. I was in Bay of L.A., sitting at Guillermo's, which I don't know if you're familiar with the area there. It's kind of the long-standing lodge and restaurant there. We were pre-running for the Baja 1000, a buddy of mine and me, and we see these two guys come paddling up on kayaks, and they're loaded for bear. And they beach on the shore, come up and immediately get a beer, and you can tell they're exhausted. And so we start talking. One guy's he might have been French, and the other guy was from Belgium. They were from across the Atlantic. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And we asked them, "Where'd you guys come from? Like, how far did you paddle?" And they said, "Oh, we came from San Felipe." And both my buddy and I were like, oh, my gosh, that's a long ways, San Felipe to Bay of LA. And so they kind of laughed a little bit, and we said, well, where are you guys headed? And they said, Colombia. And we were like, oh, my gosh. Wow. I guess San Felipe isn't that far away. So these guys were documenting the indigenous people of Central and South America. And like I said, it was right at the beginning of the internet and digital camera days. They had gotten sponsors and financial support to on a weekly basis, or when they could get internet reception, which was tough for them for a long time, to document this whole thing. Well, I followed them. They had a website, and I should look and see if it's still up, but I followed them for 6 or 7 years. The website was called Caske 2000, CASKE, which that I think reminds me now. I think it was 99 when I ran into them. But the stories that came from their journey on kayaks. I mean, they both got malaria, obviously, at certain points through their excursion. One of them ended up meeting a woman, I think, in Ecuador, and ended up getting married. But there's a whole, I mean, there's movies or several movies worth of story in this website. So when I say I will follow the progress of the Western Flyer, I mean it, because I'm interested in this kind of stuff.
Well, good. I appreciate your enthusiasm about it. We'll stay in touch with it.
And I will say, my sister, who is a marine biologist, she lives in Los Osos, which is just the south part of Morro Bay. Yeah. Excuse me. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with her, and if the boat does ending up in Monterey Bay, I know she spends time there, so she'll probably end up getting to see it, or hopefully maybe even get on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one more. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Nope.
No, I was going to say one more time, the website is westernflyer.org, and I believe there's links there to the YouTube page that is documenting the restoration of the boat. Is there any other place people could go to find more information or to learn more about it?
I don't think so, other than I would suggest people read the book, The Log of the Sea of Cortez. It's an interesting book.
Yeah.
It's something that there's something in there for everybody. So I think people would enjoy it.
Yeah, I have. I'm not going to tell you I've read it front to back, but throughout the years, it's been a book that I've had in my possession, and I've opened it and read chapters at a time or pages at a time. But it's definitely now, after speaking with you and reading about him and his past, it's definitely on the list to get read from cover to cover for sure.
Oh, good.
Well, again, John, I really appreciate the time. And this has been an episode of the Baja Sessions with John Gregg. And we have been talking about the Western Flyer and the Western Flyer Foundation, which is a very cool story. And I encourage everybody that's listening to check back on the website and watch the progress. And we'll be back next week with another interesting person with interesting stories about all things related to the majestic peninsula of Baja California. Thanks for tuning in. John, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. It was. I appreciate your enthusiasm about it.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you a link to the podcast once it is live. I can text it to you or email if you want to give me an email address.
It's just jgregg at greggdrilling.com, or you can text it, whichever's easier.
Okay, perfect. Will do. Well, I appreciate it. Good luck with everything, and I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you will have plenty of connections in the Baja realm once the thing starts heading that direction, and or already do. But if you ever have any need. Sorry.
Definitely like to keep you involved in that, because I doubt there's a lot of people with more experience than you on how to move around down there. So I would really like your input.
Well, I'm sure there are people with more experience, but I do have quite a bit, and I actually naturalized about 10 years ago and also got my citizenship, so I speak the language and have a very broad network from the top to the tip down there for sure. So, yeah, if you run into any struggles or want information, please don't hesitate to give me a ring or send me a note.
That's great. Have you spent much time in Santa Rosalia?
I haven't spent like days on end. I've spent. Yeah. It's been a stop-off spot a couple times on the drive down. And then I've been on a television show a few times. A buddy of mine produces a